Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and coming up in today's newscast, dozens of Israelis are stranded off the coast of Japan in a major coronavirus scare. A massive American fast food chain is making its debut in Israel, and we have the details. And we'll reveal 2 secret destinations that you can't miss out on when you come and visit Israel. Well, we're starting the show with some scary news. The numbers are just alarming. Over 20,000 people have been diagnosed with the coronavirus, and over 400 are believed to be dead. And now multiple Israelis are stuck on a cruise ship anchored off of Japan after health officials confirmed that 10 people on board have tested positive for the coronavirus. Coughing, sneezing, runny noses. These aren't just the symptoms of the flu. They're now the deadly symptoms of the coronavirus, a respiratory illness that spreads from person to person in close proximity. According to scientists, coughs and sneezes can travel several feet and stay suspended in the air for up to 10 minutes. So imagine being stuck on a cruise ship with multiple people who have the virus. That's the case for at least 15 to 17 Israelis who are currently under quarantine on a cruise ship anchored off of Japan. They're among 3,700 people on board who are currently being provided with food and drinks from the crew. But senior passengers fear that they'll run out of medications since they're confined to their rooms for the next 14 days. The passengers infected with coronavirus have been transferred by Japan's Coast Guard to hospitals on the mainland. And this comes as China has issued an urgent appeal for protective medical equipment. Israel's Magen David Adom National Emergency Network is now sending over 2,000 masks and 200 full protection kits to Chabad branches around China. And at the same time, the Israeli humanitarian organization IsraAid is also sending emergency medical supplies and protective gear to the Chinese Ministry of Health. The coronavirus was first reported from Wuhan, China in late December of 2019, and the World Health Organization is calling its spread a global emergency. After a nerve-wracking 24 hours, the results are finally in for the Iowa caucuses, or at least part of them are, and we have a sense of which Democratic candidates may be taking on U.S. President Donald Trump. Well, joining us now via Skype is former Israeli Deputy Minister Michael Oren with what this means for Israel. So, Michael, people are surprised by the unorganized first caucus in the Democratic primaries. What happened here, and what does it say about the state of the party?
Well, it was a poor start to the Democrats' primary season, an attempt to use a new application for voting to show the Democratic Party was sort of high-tech and savvy, and it collapsed. And very embarrassing, and provided ammunition for the Trump White House to say, hey, the Democrats think they can run the country, they can't even run the primaries in Iowa.
Right. Now, as of now, it seems like Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders are taking the lead, but of course the final votes aren't out. Where do both of these candidates stand in terms of Israel?
Well, Pete Buttigieg has been critical of Israel, particularly critical of the Netanyahu government, branding it as racist. Bernie Sanders is to the far of the left even of that. He has come out and criticized Israel very bitterly on Gaza policy, on settlements, on Jerusalem. He has sworn to restore the Iran nuclear deal. I think that a Sanders presidency would be a major strategic and moral challenge for the state of Israel.
In your eyes, who has the biggest chance of winning against Trump, or is there really any candidate right now that can challenge him?
Well, of all the candidates, the most Trumpian of the Democrats is Bernie Sanders. You can say that he's sort of the Trump of the left. Mm-hmm. The centrist candidate would be someone like Biden, along with Amy Klobuchar, and both of whom I know quite well and are very friendly to Israel, warm place in their hearts for Israel. But I don't know what their chances are right now, especially after their poor showings in Iowa.
Now, regarding Trump's peace plan, is it being discussed by the Democrats in the primaries at all?
They've just sort of dismissed it out of hand. I think anything that comes out of that White House is going to be dismissed out of hand. Unfortunately, I think I've been involved in the peace process for a quarter of a century, and in many ways it's the peace process that most reflects realities on the ground in our area. and it's a shame. In my correspondence and conversations with Democrats, I've urged them not to reject it out of hand. So far, I haven't been very successful.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador, with this update.
Okay. You be well. Bye-bye.
You too. Now, here's an interesting question. How do American Jews view the state of Israel? Well, a new report has some interesting insight, and ILTV's Nittany Manson joins us with the info.
Hey, Natasha. So there are a lot of claims that American Jews are drifting away from Israel over its policies related to the Palestinians and support of the Trump administration. But interestingly, a report by the Rutherman Family Foundation says something different. 8 out of 10 respondents identified as pro-Israel. That's a whopping 67%.
Now, that certainly goes against the narrative that we seem to be hearing in mainstream media.
Definitely. The foundation says that the majority of American Jews are sympathetic to Israel, and most of them feel an emotional connection to the Jewish state. And this was after they surveyed 2,500 Jews across America. But here's what's really interesting. A majority of them, 57% to be exact, said that they are pro-Israel, but critical of Israel's policy. Only 23% said that they are supportive of the current government's policies.
So it seems that politics are really the main reason that U.S. Jews have for criticizing Israel at all.
Exactly. 39% of respondents said that the Israeli Prime Minister's support for President Trump and his policies is the chief reason that they criticize Israel. 33% also said that they don't like the increasing religious right-wing political influences in Israel, and 25% said that they don't like the treatment of Palestinians.
Now, there is another interesting poll that you want to share with us regarding the Orthodox Jewish community in the U.S., right?
Yeah, that's right. The organization Nishma Research has just conducted a survey of their own. Over 1,200 members of the American Orthodox community, and apparently 66% of Haredi voters reported voting for Trump, but only 32% of modern Orthodox Jews voted for him.
Now, that's surprising to hear about with the modern Orthodox community, because Trump has really pushed an agenda that's supportive of Israel's government, which is even being driven forward by Jared Kushner, Trump's modern Orthodox son-in-law,
Yeah, well, keep this in mind. The survey came out before Trump's release of the Mideast peace deal, so the numbers may be changing a bit.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for joining us, Nittany.
Of course.
All right, now the world is continuing to react to the release of U.S. President Donald Trump's so-called Mideast peace deal of the century. And now the Israeli president is speaking out. Israelis and Palestinians are not doomed to live together. It's our destiny to live together. That's a message from Israeli President Reuven Rivlin, who is now calling for the resumption of direct peace negotiations with the Palestinians. His statement comes just days after U.S. President Donald Trump released his long-awaited Mideast peace deal, which the Palestinians have outright rejected. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has threatened to cut all relations with Jerusalem and Washington in response to the release of the deal. But he still seems to be hinting that security ties with Israel and the U.S. remain intact. Today, Israel and the Palestinians coordinate between police forces and share information regarding terrorist cells in the West Bank. Palestinian forces have also received training from the U.S. and other Western countries. Well, now the European Union also seems to be bickering about Trump's peace deal. Last week, Josep Borrell, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, tried to convince 27 European foreign ministers to issue a resolution criticizing the so-called peace deal of the century. Israel's foreign ministry lobbied hard against it, and in the end, 6 countries blocked it, including Italy, Hungary, and the Czech Republic. Well, the leader of Sudan is speaking out about his meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in Uganda this week, which has stirred controversy in his country. Sudan is a Muslim-majority African nation that has never had diplomatic ties with the State of Israel. The country has been a longtime member of the Arab League, which has just blasted U.S. President Donald Trump's Mideast peace deal. But this week, Sudanese leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan met with the Israeli Prime Minister for the first time ever. And Netanyahu is now suggesting that Sudan and Israel could establish official ties. Today, Sudan is listed as a state sponsor of terror in the U.S. and is desperate to lift sanctions as a result of that. The Sudanese economy needs to be rebuilt following a popular uprising last year that toppled the autocratic government. But not everybody is happy about Sudan rubbing shoulders with Israel. In response to the critics, Al-Burhan says that he's decided to meet with Israel in an effort to protect the national security of Sudan. State media says that Burhan is still affirming his nation's commitment to the Palestinian cause and that Sudan will continue to operate in accordance with the decisions of the Arab League. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is making headlines for announcing that he's looking for employees for his company, but that he doesn't necessarily care if they have university educations. Now, his appeal begs the question as to whether or not college degrees are even necessary in today's workforce. And joining us with an alternative form of education is Doron Aronson, the general manager of Jolt IL. All right, so your company has just raised $14 million to establish an alternative academic program. First of all, why do you think that the way education is structured today needs to change?
Well, you know, there is a higher education bubble. I mean, we're talking about a $2.3 trillion industry in which 80% of its students, the users, actually state that they don't believe in it. Right. So, you know, this is not new. We know for many years that there is an issue with higher education, with formal education. But the thing is that recently we've seen more and more employers, such as Elon Musk, state that themselves. So, you know, employers like IBM and Google nowadays say that college degree is no longer a prerequisite to get a job.
Yeah, and when you hear something like that, you start thinking about all the college loans you had to take out for when you were paying for your $60,000 education in the United States, right? So let's talk a little bit about Jolt and what you guys do. What is this alternative approach that you've created?
Right. So Jolt is a new kind of business school. I mean, instead of stopping your life for 1 year or 2 years and spend so much money like a traditional MBA requires you to do, in Jolt you can actually choose which skills you'd like to acquire to give you a competitive advantage in business today. So we've actually opened many mini campuses in co-working places around the cities, inside Tel Aviv, London, and now in the US as well, in which students can gather around and get live stream sessions from professional experts from top companies from around the world. Now, these experts are not professors. They're not professors, but rather they're professionals who've been working during the day as executive, as managers inside those companies, and then teach them exactly what they do.
So would this be a replacement for an MBA specifically, or would it be for just education as a whole?
Well, right now, we have 6 months ago, we have launched our NAMBA program, which is not an MBA. We're not regulated by any government. We're not obligated to any old last century curriculum, but rather we've gathered around top experts, alumni of the best MBA programs on the planet, such as graduates of Stanford, Harvard Business School, INSEAD, LBS, and so on. And we've asked them to build a curriculum stating, what do you want to see, working as executive in companies today? What would you like to see candidates have? Which skills should they have?
Well, I'm just thinking about the things that you gain when you're in a 4-year institution. You know, it can be very competitive. You're required to meet deadlines. The pressure of that experience can also be very formative in a certain sense because you have to learn discipline.
Right.
Do you necessarily have that in a program like this? Because it seems that you just get to pick and choose what you want, what you feel like, and you don't necessarily have to finish, right?
So formal education does play a role, and it's important, but we see nowadays that it's not enough in order to get into the workforce, okay? And the employers are stating that themselves. You can see that there are different trends that weren't around centuries ago. You can see now that people replace job every 1 or 2 years. If that's the case, they need to reskill, they need to upskill. So going and stopping your life for 3 or 4 years and then hoping that will be sufficient for the next 20 years, and it doesn't work that way anymore. People want to keep on learning and evolving. Okay, so that's why we need to actually break it down. That's why you need to have lifelong learning. That's why you want to have stackable learning, and that's what we do in Jolt.
Well, I think the idea is for people to remember that you don't necessarily need a multiple-year degree to learn, right? There are other ways in which you can do that.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
All right, now, how long can you go without looking at your cell phone? That is the test that a Jerusalem restaurant is now giving to its customers with a big incentive. If you manage to simply sit down and talk to whoever you're eating with without looking at your phone, you'll get a 10% discount on your meal. The question is, are you willing to engage in authentic face-to-face conversation for a couple of extra shekels or not? Surprisingly, a lot of the people who tried to do it just said it wasn't that easy. The Jerusalem Cafe Tmol Shilshom is behind this genius idea. They've placed small cages on the tables in their restaurant. The diners are encouraged to lock their phones inside. And after locking your cell inside, you have to hand over the key to your waitress, who will give it back to you at the end of the meal. Now, one couple says that they were happy to try out the experience, but that it was a lot tougher than they thought to keep their eyes off of their phones. The thing is, not everybody has been willing to take part in the initiative. So far, the cafe says that the majority of people have actually refused to lock their phones away, with many saying that they need to be available for work. So I guess authentic conversation and a 10% discount may not be enough of an incentive to get people off of their mobiles. All right, now moving on. This is very, very interesting. Your trash may be worth a lot more than you think. The German automaker Daimler is checking out if it's feasible to manufacture automobile parts out of household waste. Yes, you heard me right. They're doing it all with the help of the Israeli company UBQ Materials. The average American produces close to an estimated 6 pounds of trash every day. That adds up to an absurd amount of waste every year. But imagine if you were able to turn that garbage into something useful. That's exactly what the German car maker Daimler is trying to do. With the help of the Israeli company UBQ Materials, they want to start manufacturing automobile parts out of household waste. UBQ has developed a patented process to turn waste into renewable raw material that can be made into everyday goods. UBQ basically breaks down the garbage into sustainable pellets that are already being used to make items like shopping carts, pipes, and trash cans. So why not make a car out of your trash? Well, Daimler's partnership with UBQ won't be the Israeli company's first. Their material is already being used in the furnishings of McDonald's restaurants across Latin America. And the Central Virginia Waste Management Authority will be making 2,000 recycling bins with UBQ's earth-friendly material. All right, it's time to learn about some must-see places to visit here in the Holy Land that even Israelis don't always know about. They're brought to you by Visit to Israel, and joining us is Uri Mor, the owner and tour guide with the Let's Tour Israel travel agency.
Shalom.
Shalom. So what is up first today?
First, we'll visit Archer's house, or Bet HaKshatot in Hebrew.
Bet HaKshatot, that's a hard one.
It is, yeah. It's an old Roman bathhouse. The Romans really liked water. They came to Israel, they kept building aqueducts, cisterns, beautiful bathhouses like this one. And it uses natural springs, which are collected in a well, and then there's an aqueduct that you can actually crawl in if you want, that leads the water into a beautiful indoor pool, which used to be a bathhouse. Yeah. If you come in summer, it's just a regular building. If you come in winter, when it's filled with water, you can actually jump in and swim.
And where is this in Israel?
It's in the Jerusalem mountains, the Shfela area, the mountains sloping down from Jerusalem towards the shoreline.
So this is kind of a good place to visit if you're visiting Jerusalem. Anyhow,
yeah,
kind of side
it's a drive off Jerusalem. Better to be visited, I would say, autumn or winter.
You'd say it's better to visit in the winter?
Yeah.
Interesting, because of the water. Got it. Okay. All right, so what is up next?
Okay. Better visited any time of the year is Caesarea or Caesarea.
Yeah, one of my favorite places.
An amazing, amazing old Roman city built by the very talented architect, King Herod, he's a side job as the king of Israel. Yeah. He was an amazing architect. He builds a beautiful port, the biggest man-made port known at that time.
Right.
In the shores of nothing, of the Mediterranean. He uses all kinds of ashes he brings from Europe to build foundations to a breakwater. And this becomes a huge main port, which services everybody sailing from Europe to Egypt and vice versa.
And what's interesting about Caesarea is that today it's one of the wealthiest areas in all of Israel, but it has this amazing history behind it as well. So
it is.
You can go see, I think Netanyahu the Israeli prime minister has his home in Caesarea,
it's kind of like the Beverly Hills of Israel. I mean, not the old city, the city that developed around it.
Yeah.
But even the old port has been developed, and now there's a lot of cafes and restaurants. You can sit down in 2,000-year-old antiques, have a carpaccio or cappuccino, and beautiful sunsets, but beautiful any time of the year.
Listen, this is one of my favorite areas of Israel. The beaches are spectacular if you just want to even have a beach day. And I've sat up there on the ledge myself, just like these people. So I really recommend going there. Thank you so much for joining us today with these updates.
Ciao.
All right, so guess who is back in business in Israel? You ready? KFC, that's right. Kentucky Fried Chicken is back in the Holy Land because let's face it, there is a severe lack of quality fried chicken in this country. Now here's the only problem. KFC hasn't exactly had an easy ride in Israel. This is actually the 4th time the American chain is opening up in the country. KFC opened and closed in Israel in the 1980s and 90s, and then opened again between 2003 and 2012. And it turns out Israelis were taking the finger-licking chicken for granted. So now KFC has just opened again, and this time their new restaurant is in Nazareth, not on the Israeli boardwalk like last time. And this time around, their famous fried chicken recipe will not only be modified to heed to Jewish dietary laws. In fact, those changes that they made last time made the chicken more expensive and apparently less tasty. So if you can't make it to Nazareth for a taste, don't worry. KFC is apparently going to be opening dozens of more locations in Israel in the coming years, and Tel Aviv is going to be first on the list. The 65th edition of the Eurovision Song Contest is set to take place in May in Rotterdam, Netherlands, and it looks like Israel has just crowned their representative. Get this, she's only 19 years old. And ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is, of course, here with the details.
Hey, Natasha. So last night was a very exciting night for all Eurovision fans. Here in Israel, there's a reality singing competition show called Kochav Haba, or Rising Star, and the winner goes on to represent Israel in the Eurovision. Well, the finale was last night, and the winner is Eden Aline. She's 19 years old, and she's from Jerusalem. Her parents actually immigrated to Israel from Ethiopia.
Yeah. Last night I stayed up just to see who won because, it really was such a close call. But she previously won the Israeli X Factor show, right?
Yeah, she actually won last year's X Factor show, and that's why a lot of people had already recognized her voice and her face. She had a strong following before coming onto the show, so that definitely helped her chances. Now, the Kochav Haba show is Israel's most watched singing competition and has served as the country's selection method for the Eurovision contest for several years now.
Right, so what happens now? She won, but when are we actually going to know what song she's set to sing?
Right, so in the next few weeks, Eden's song entry for the event will be selected during a live broadcast show of the next song for Eurovision on the Israeli public broadcaster Kan. It will feature 4 potential songs for Eden, and the final tracks will be judged by a team of professional judges and viewers, and then the winning song will be what we'll be hearing Eden sing in Rotterdam.
I remember hearing the winner of the 2018 Eurovision Song Contest, Israeli singer Netta Barzilai. Her song Toy, and I knew that it was going to be a worldwide hit. It just such a powerful message during the Me Too movement. And Netta herself was actually so confident and empowering. So I'm excited to hear what song Eden gets to sing. I know that the Israeli Prime Minister is very excited about it. He already congratulated her online.
He posted a photo of Eden on his Facebook and wrote, quote, Eden, you're a champion, and that he trusts she'll bring the Eurovision back to Israel. So I guess we'll hope so.
Let's hope so. And I really think it just comes down to the song that's chosen. So Israel, get it right.
Yes.
Please, please. All right, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Skies are mostly sunny today with a high of 69 degrees Fahrenheit in Tel Aviv or 21 Celsius. And tomorrow it looks like the sun will be shining all day in preparation for a very rainy weekend with a high of around 73 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what is going viral in Israel on tubing. This week we're just seeing so many videos of pets misbehaving, but I enjoy them. All right, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.45 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and thanks for watching.